5 Live Formula One.
Day 2 of the MSC Cruises Austrian Grand Prix is underway as we prepare for the third free practice of the weekend around the 2.7 mile, 4.3 kilometre Red Bull Ring in the Austrian countryside. Welcome to coverage on Radio 5 Sports Extra. I'm Ben Edwards and we're gearing up for the final practice session before qualifying takes place at 3 p.m. UK time. The sun's shining, dry weather is forecast for the weekend, and Rosanna Tennant is down in the pit lane to keep us up to date with all that's going on. Rosanna, it is another lovely day at this enjoyable venue.
It's lovely and warm, Ben. 24 degrees, but actually, if you look up, there's a lot of cloud cover, especially over the circuit. Far off, over the forest and the mountains, there's some blue sky, but right here at the Red Bull Ring, some dark clouds. But I've checked the weather forecast, 0% chance of precipitation, rain, so hopefully we'll get a dry final practice session. And as you can hear, the cars are firing up. I'm standing outside Lando Norris's garage. He's standing talking with his engineers currently, hands over his ear defenders, but his overalls are rolled down, so not getting in the car yet, Norris. And if I look across the start-finish straight, fans are flooding into the grandstand, pulling up a pew, finding their seat, and there's a mixture of fans in front of me. I've got quite a lot of red Ferrari fans, quite a lot of papaya orange for the McLarens, and yeah, you've guessed it, the Dutch army are here, the Orange Army out in force. A lot of Max Verstappen fans are in them.
Well, we shall be seeing a lot of that, no doubt. Alongside me in the commentary box, let me welcome former pole sitter and race winner at this track in the W Series in 2021, Alice Powell, and F1 correspondent for BBC Sport, Andrew Benson. Alice, McLaren were quick yesterday, but Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are aware that the Fridays, when they're always rapid, other teams do step up on the Saturdays, and we may well be seeing that a bit more today.
Yeah, I think we could do. Track conditions are cleaner than they were yesterday. We've had a Porsche qualifying, we've had an F3 race, and track conditions will just continue to improve throughout the weekend. If we get no rain, as Rosanna said, there's no rain due for this practice session. McLaren's look strong, and you just can't write off Max Verstappen. I'd like to include both Red Bulls, and that was Tsunoda, but he still struggled a little bit yesterday, albeit he was slightly closer to Verstappen, but he was still off the pace compared. So I would keep an eye on Max. We're expecting the McLarens to be at the front, but Max looks pretty strong as well.
Well, we shall see. Andrew Benson with us as well, as I mentioned. And Andrew, there's been a lot of chat about George Russell's future with Mercedes this weekend. Do you think the fact that he hasn't got a contract at this stage in the season, is it almost a distraction for George? I mean, actually, he showed well yesterday. I didn't see him distracted, but it does worry me a little bit when they get into this stage halfway through a season that it can distract their driving when there isn't a contract in place.
Well, if it does, it's his own fault, because he brought it up on Thursday. It was Russell himself who started this whole conversation. He basically revealed that Mercedes were in conversations with Max Verstappen about next year. So if he obviously doesn't think it distracts himself. I think Toto Wolff said something very interesting yesterday. He spent half an hour of a press conference basically not denying that he was talking to Verstappen, but not confirming it either. And then in his TV interviews afterwards, he was kind of a little bit more playing it down, saying it wasn't very likely that Verstappen would join Mercedes. But of course, not very likely is not the same as couldn't happen. And but anyway, what Wolff said was, when it comes to the contract situation, our sport is pressure. Constant pressure. Whether you're in the car, outside the car, you just need to cope with that. George knows that like any other driver knows it. And I think that's Wolff is such a strong and powerful communicator, but that sums up Formula One. It puts people under so much strain on every level, and it's one of the things that I find so fascinating about it as a sport. You cannot hide in Formula One. You are stripped bare as a person, whether you want to or not. There's nothing you can do about it because the environment is so intense, and this is an example of one of the things that makes it such an intense environment.
I agree with that. Yes, it is absolutely like that, no doubt. But it's lovely to see so many fans in Austria ready to enjoy the final practice session before it all goes into qualifying a little bit later this afternoon. And it is, of course, a track they all know very, very well, whether they've raced F1 here in the past or whether they're some of the rookies rookies. They will have raced Formula 3 or Formula 2, so they all know the track very well. 10 official turns, but 7 real corners around this track. 63.5 metre elevation change, second only to the Spa circuit in terms of the up and down that you get through the course of the circuit. You're climbing up through to turn 1 and then long straight up towards what we call turn 3. It's effectively the second proper corner, but actually braking uphill. And as we saw yesterday, Alice, the late braking you have to do into the slow corners here, and particularly as you were mentioning, when it's uphill as well, getting that brake balance can be a bit of a challenge.
It certainly can. The track is cleaner, as we've already touched on, but certainly with these long straights, the brakes can cool down, the surface of the tyres can decrease as well. So that makes those more prone to these lockups, and you often see drivers throughout plenty of circuits, not just this one, but make changes to their brake bias, which moves the bite of the brakes either further forward or further rearwards, depending on how much they change it by. But yeah, you'll often see them changing it throughout the lap on this track. So plenty for the drivers to adjust to. Not many are getting in their cars at the moment. Charles Leclerc's just made his way into the garage after signing some stuff for some fans, but the session is underway now.
It is. We have 58 minutes and 52 seconds, 51, 50, 49, and still nobody out on track at the moment. It's interesting that nobody has actually decided to go on circuit yet. We shall see them coming out, and no doubt they'll probably all come out at the same time, and then we'll have 20 cars on a track which is not easy to get a clear run. And I do think that is still going to be an issue when we get into qualifying later today, particularly in Q1. Esteban Ocon, we're just keeping an eye on right now. The performance of the Haas in qualifying, not always so strong. He was 15th fastest in second practice yesterday. Interestingly, though, ahead of the Williams, we're also seeing Lance Stroll waiting to go out onto the circuit. He actually was quite impressive, 4th fastest in second practice yesterday. That was a bit of a surprise, wasn't it?
It was, to be honest. He seemed fairly comfortable in the car yesterday. Obviously it counts today. Later on today is when they really need to get the job done. It's all right being fast in practice, but you don't get points for that. So it's important for him to try and continue, but he did seem to be the fastest of the Aston Martin cars, which doesn't happen too often. No disrespect to Lance, but we don't see that very often.
No, that's right. We shall see how they all get on. Isaac Hadjar just waiting before he's being asked to go out. Andrew, one thing I just wanted to talk about briefly was the fact that quite a few of the teams have got modifications on the cars this weekend, haven't they? Which are sort of probably some of the last modifications for this year, but it will be brought up in Silverstone as well. Ferrari have made quite a few floor changes, but from what the drivers were saying yesterday, both Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, so far it's not making a big difference.
Well, we'll have to see today, won't we? Yeah, so big change, some quite significant changes on the floor for Ferrari. Basically, it's an entirely new floor, from the front fences to the floor edge squirrely bits, for want of a better way of describing them, to the tunnels and things, and the diffuser at the back. It's all been redesigned on the Ferrari, and it's a really important development for them, because they've been struggling this year fundamentally because they can't run the car as low as they want to for its optimum aerodynamic performance, because it wears the plank out too much. And we think that's why Hamilton was able to win the sprint in China, because they got the car nice and low, and the sprint's not that long, obviously, and then they tripped themselves up in the Grand Prix where they were disqualified, one of them for floor wear. So this change is an attempt, we think, to be able to get optimum downforce at a slightly higher ride heights to avoid those issues. We'll find out over the course of the next few races whether it's made that difference. Fred Vasseur, the team principal, has been making some slightly confusing comments. He talks about how getting the tyres in the right window is much more important than upgrading the car, and they've not been doing a good job on that through the year, and it's certainly true that Ferrari have been making operational mistakes from time to time, but the fact of the matter is that in qualifying, on average pace, they are the 4th fastest car, and it can't all be to do with tyres, and everybody has the same tyres, so they've got to look at, I mean, I'm sure Vasseur's making a valid point, but the fact is the car isn't fast enough on one lap, and if you don't qualify well, then it's much harder to make that ground up in the race, even if you are almost as quick as the cars in front of you, or even quicker in some cases.
Okay, well, we shall follow to see how Ferrari get on this weekend. We're seeing Fernando Alonso out on circuit now in the Aston Martin. Still plenty of other drivers not even in their cars yet. Lando Norris sitting in the garage waiting for the team to say, okay, it's time to get out there. But yeah, many of the drivers deciding to just sit and wait for this stage. Lando was fastest in FP2 yesterday. He did a 104.580. Actually not far away from the pace that Max Verstappen set to take pole position here last year. And Max has taken a whole bunch of pole positions here at this circuit over the years. In recent years, he has kind of dominated this place. He was leading the race for most of it last year, but then he had a slow pit stop, an incident with Lando Norris, and it was George Russell who went on to take victory here 12 months ago. Alex Albon getting ready in a few moments to come out for Williams. They were a bit disappointing, Alice, yesterday in second practice. Albon was 16th, Carlos Sainz was 17th, but we did see a better pace in the first practice. And, you know, there's a lot of work going on over a Friday night, a lot of simulator work, a lot of analysis done by the teams back at their bases, so we can see quite some changes on a Saturday.
We can. Trust me, they would have been sat diving into the data, sat in their engineering room. They have specific times, the drivers, for engineering. That's mainly just to cope with their busy schedule with media. They'll have specific eating times. Trust me, their day is planned to the minute, almost to the second of where they need to be, what they need to be doing. And they would have sat there and gone through everything in that specific time. Some drivers then like to stay a little bit longer. Lewis Hamilton is often one of those that likes to really sit and stay and be in the meetings way longer than he maybe needs to. But they would have made, some teams would have made a whole handful of changes. Others maybe not so much, are fairly comfortable with their car and just little tweaks here and there. But this is going to be the last real proper session where they can make those changes. Of course, then as soon as they go out on track for qualifying, that's when all the part firme kicks in, and no changes will be able to be made.
Absolutely. Well, we're watching Max Verstappen. He is one of those out quite early, and let's just see what the initial lap is. 106.1 on hard compound tyres, so not down into the 105s or 104s, and we think we might even see them into the 103s in qualifying later today. We shall see if they get down to that level. It does depend on the grip levels, of course. Simon Rennie is his race engineer this weekend because GP Lambiase is not here for Max as he normally is. Simon, though, has worked with Red Bull for many years. He's been with the team since 2013. He was race engineer for Mark Webber, Daniel Ricciardo, went to more of a factory role, but so experienced, and he knows Max well. And Max was saying yesterday that actually they've been getting on really well, and yeah, they're learning all the time about the car and what they can do with it. But he said it's working well, working with Simon this weekend.
No, and that's a good thing of being adaptable. But he would have known Simon from working with Simon being at Red Bull for a number of years. Obviously, Max being at Red Bull for a long time. They would have come across these people, because Simon would have been in the debriefs as well. Trust me, when you go into the debrief room, there's a lot of people in there, a lot of staff, engineering staff that are there going through every inch of data. As we see Colapinto, who's just out on track again, a driver that's struggling since he's come back into Formula One. But I have to say, when we were on board with the Alpine yesterday, it looked horrible, certainly for Colapinto. It just looked like he had no grip whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll see how Colapinto gets on this weekend. Rosanna, it's all been a bit quiet out on track so far, hasn't it?
And it's kind of quiet in the pit lane, even though the majority of cars are still in their garages. But I've been keeping an eye on the top teams, if you like, the McLarens and the Ferraris. Interesting that Lewis Hamilton always comes into the garage already suited and booted. So he arrived with his helmet on, got into the car, and he's been sitting there for a few minutes already. Charles Leclerc's just being handed his steering wheel in the cockpit of the Ferrari, and he's got his screens down in front of him so he can have a look at the data and telemetry, prepare himself for what's to come over the next 50 or so minutes of FP3. And then Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri were very busy having chats with team members and engineers, and were taking their time getting suited, putting on their balaclavas and then finally their helmets. And Lando's just being strapped in now on his side of the garage, and Oscar Piastri, if I walk just a little bit further, they're right at the beginning beginning of the pit lane. He's just stepping onto the little ladder that the mechanics put there for them, the little step ladder, and climbing into the cockpit. And one of the mechanics is holding a fan that's keeping the cockpit nice and cool for him. Oh, he's got his foot stuck on something, but now he just pushes his legs down into the base of the car and he pops himself down into the cockpit. A little bit of a wriggle to get comfy, and he'll get belted in as well. So they're taking their time. A nice easy Saturday morning or afternoon.
I agree, yeah. It's quite a quiet start, but it'll go crazy at some point. They'll all be out and all getting in each other's ways and complaining, no doubt. But we're just seeing Colin Pinto go around. Alice, you were watching on board. Did the car look any more stable this time?
It looked a little bit better, but his timer is a lot slower than it was yesterday. Whether this is just a gentle build-up lap, but Verstappen's lap was a lot slower than it was yesterday. But just looking at the temperatures, air temperature is fairly similar, but track temperature is over 10 degrees cooler than what we saw around about this time yesterday. So it could be maybe there is actually a bit more cloud cover out there. That's going to impact track conditions as well. So that could be potentially why we're seeing quite a lot of people just sort of sitting, waiting. They did a lot of their running yesterday, waiting for maybe this track temperature to come up, because we're likely to raise when we head towards qualifying, as we're on board with Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, we are
bouncing down the straight, can't we, as he comes up into turn 4.
Yeah, so let's see how Pierre Gasly gets on here for Alpine. He's had a best finish of 7th at this track in the past, both in 2019 and in 2020. Best qualifying he has had here is 6th, so we can do some comparisons. He's dropping down the hill now through turn 4, running out quite wide, and then into the 2 rapid left-handers. He's still dropping downhill a bit further, but they're both fast corners, these, where the gravel on the outside can trap you very quickly. He's running it smoothly at the moment, right out to the edge, but not going too wide, and doing a decent lap so far. Into the final stage now, dropping downhill into 2 rapid 90-degree right-handers that then bring him onto the start-finish straight. Out of the final corner he comes. It's a little run towards the line, and he goes second fastest, but he is some 7/10 slower than the lap that Max Verstappen did, and he's on the medium compound tyres as opposed to Max on the hard compound tyres. Interestingly, the wind speed is not particularly high today. That did affect things a bit in FP2 yesterday, but it's not particularly windy so far. Whether that will change, we'll see later on.
Yeah, we've got a slight, you could say, tailwind now going into turn 4, whereas yesterday we had the tailwind going into turn 3. So changed direction, but as you said, it's not as strong as it was yesterday. I mean, it wasn't really too strong yesterday either, but plenty of fans have come out. Always a popular venue to come to, and I remember when being in the support paddock, it's right opposite one of the great big grandstands that's usually full with Max Verstappen's fans, and I swear they are just constantly having a party. The noise, the chanting, even when Formula One isn't on track, they're having such a great time, and it's always a lovely venue to go to. And again, a driver's favourite, particularly that last sector. It's like a roller coaster as we're on board with Max Verstappen now. He goes through turn 9, swoops down into turn 10, and actually has a bit of a wobble on those hard tyres, just about avoids the gravel on the exit, actually just kicks a tiny bit of it up. But this last sector is fantastic. One of the shortest, well, it is the shortest lap time on the calendar, and it is also the track with the fewest corners as well.
It is, yeah, but as you say, it's still very challenging, so it is a fun track for both drivers and for viewers, and the spectators, as you say, having a lovely time. A lot of them are camping around here because there's not many hotels very close to the track. Let's listen to Max's radio.
Car's a bit back on fronting. 26 last corner. Don't have to put the power down. It's snappy.
Yeah, and so there he is, explaining exactly what we just saw a moment ago with the snap on the rear of the car, and he's saying it's responding as I get back on the power. He's so calm in sort of making that explanation, even though for a lot of people that would be a scary moment, but for these drivers, of course, it's just part and parcel of what they do all the time.
It is, and when you watch Max, when he's pushing to the absolute limit in a qualifying lap, and even actually George's lap from Canada was sensational, was really impressive, and he was constantly on the limit and that's what you need to be. It's sometimes it looks like it's fairly easy and calm in the cockpit, but it's not. They're feeling everything through their bum, their hands, even their feet, even they're not actually physically touching the ground. All these senses are all kicking in as Esteban Ocon's out there on the soft tyre. We've got a few soft tyre runners out there. He just goes through 6 into 7, just waiting to get on that throttle. This looks a lot calmer than Max's lap on the hard tyre as he goes through turn 9 now.
Yeah, let's just quickly see what the lap time he does is now that he's on the soft tyres, Esteban Ocon, compared to Max Verstappen's time. Well, it's a little bit slow, as you can see. He is currently 4th fastest with that. Verstappen still having set the pace. Let's go back to Rosanna.
Well, it has got a bit busier in the pit lane, a lot more cars heading out. Lando Norris is headed out in the McLaren, but his teammate Oscar Piastri is still waiting patiently. And similar with Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton been released already by the team, but Charles Leclerc now waiting for his turn. So a bit more action and hopefully more cars out on track, so more action for the fans to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's starting to get a bit busier out there now, which is fun to see. Isaac Hadjar ready to come out onto circuit as well. So it is starting to get a little bit busier out there. Verstappen fastest from Tsunoda now. Tsunoda has just set the 2nd fastest time, and it's actually very, very close for a change, but Verstappen's on another lap. He's just set a fast 1st sector. So as we would expect, they're going to be getting quicker and quicker. They're in the 105s at the moment. We're in the 104s, the quick ones yesterday. And remember, the times are incredibly close. We saw between Charles Leclerc in 5th and Ocon in 15th, so 10 cars. We saw a gap of basically a second yesterday. So it is always very tight here.
And it will be close in qualifying as well. And just to point out, Tsunoda is on the soft tyre, whereas Max is on the hard tyre still, and he's just gone purple in the 1st sector, purple in the 2nd sector. That means fastest overall. Lando Norris is out there on a soft tyre and gets all squirming as he applies the power on the exit of turn 3. He's going to DRS wide open down into turn 4, quite downhill, hooks the inside curve. That really pulls you round. If you miss that, you're only going to induce understeer on the exit. And then into the swooping turn 6. Exit comes at you quite quickly, and then into turn 7. This S chicane, fairly flat out and simple in an F1 car on the exit there. He's purple in the middle sector, swoops into turn 9, and we're quickly closing the end of the lap into turn 10.
It's looking good, isn't it? It's looking likely that he's going to go fastest, and he does. Across the line he does get a 105.412 on the soft tyres, so then he has a wobble and a wide run into turn 1, so that doesn't quite work as perfectly. Still on a quick lap, but nonetheless I'm sure he would have backed off. I wouldn't have thought he was going to go for another very quick lap.
We did see yesterday though that the soft tyre didn't really drop off massively. I mean, that could change throughout the weekend if I believe it's due to get warmer later on today and into tomorrow, but we could see drivers sort of doing consecutive laps. Okay, maybe not 2 push laps in a row, but certainly doing a push, a cool, a push, a cool. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what Verstappen's been doing. He's just come into the pits now. He is on the hard tyre, but he's clocked up 9 laps already on that hard tyre.
Right, so now let's see what the other McLaren does, because Oscar Piastri's now picking it up and heading around onto a quick lap himself on a set of soft tyres, heading up towards turn 1, getting the braking done nice and tidy through there, clips the curbs on the inside and outside, car getting out of his way. So he's flat out down this long straight, which heads through what they call turn 2, is just a little kink, and then heavy late braking into turn 3, but his 1st sector is not that impressive.
And he didn't have a great exit out of turn 10 as well. He was also getting a bit of oversteer as he applied the throttle. So maybe these lower track temperatures aren't proving great for those who are out there at the moment. Goes through into turn 4, runs it nice and wide, but it all looks fairly stable since that start of the lap for Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, coming in through the second sector, so he's not lost much more in the second sector, just a tiny bit compared to Norris, but it does look as though he's going to be a few tenths down on the lap time that Lando Norris has set so far. Norris fastest from Verstappen second, Tsunoda is currently third, Lance Stroll still showing good pace here, fourth, ahead of teammate Fernando Alonso. They've done virtually the same lap time, and yes, Piastri does go third, as we kind of expected, 3 tenths of a second, nearly 4 tenths of a second off Lando Norris this time, which is slightly unusual. Hamilton is down in 7th place in the Ferrari on soft tyres. Gasly 8th. Hulkenberg has got 9th fastest. And then we've got the 2 Haas cars. Ollie Behrman in 10th place. Esteban Ocon in 11th. Still some people putting in their first flying laps. Hadjar's just moved up into 9th place. And we're keeping an eye now on Charles Leclerc. Leclerc, a former winner here at this track in 2022. He's had 1 pole position here in the past, but he's had a few incidents as well, several podiums. But of course, the Ferrari experienced man. Let's see how it goes. And in fact, first sector, okay, but then it went wrong at turn 3.
Yeah, he just asked a little bit too much on the entry there into 3. Just turned the car in, and car said no. There is actually a dip in the middle of the corner there, and you'll often sometimes see drivers missing that apex depending on the handling of their car, because it does sort of, there's almost like a dip, and then it rises again. It's a subtle one, but it can affect the car's handling.
I just wanted to ask Alice and Ben, if you've driven this track as well. I know you said you'd driven the old Österreich yesterday. What's the most difficult corner on this circuit? Because turn 3, for example, where Leclerc's just gone off, there's a couple of different lines there, aren't there? You don't actually have to hit the apex sometimes, and then turn 6 doesn't really get talked about, but it's a really long corner downhill and looks quite tricky. And then, of course, 9 and 10, the last 2 corners. 10's a very short apex. 9's a downhill entry, very fast, with the curb trying to drag you in all the time. What's the most difficult?
I think so. You wouldn't have seen this, obviously, our listeners, but we've just seen a replay of Charles Leclerc, who just avoided that bump that you've talked about. So that can be tricky, but I would say, and we've just seen a replay of Hamilton, that Ferrari not looking happy on that soft tyre. I would say turn 6 is probably one of the hardest. It tightens up slightly on the exit, so it lures you in to go, right, I can carry a lot of speed there, but it also drops away on the exit, so quite quickly there your handling can go from maybe a little bit of oversteer on the way in to then some understeer on the way out. So turn 6 for me, I would say is certainly a very tricky corner. Turn 9, that favours the brave. It's blind on the exit. You just got to trust that you're going to have the grip through there. And turn 3, you mentioned, there are several different lines that you can take there, and again, that just really depends on the balance of your car. I've been in races before where I've tried to mimic a line of the driver in front, and my car just doesn't enjoy it. So a variety of lines, and it's a tricky track, and we're watching Sainz go through turn 6 now, and he's running out nearly towards the edge of the gravel, but we did see a few drivers go off there yesterday, didn't we, Ben?
We did, yes. They've been quite well behaved at the moment, I have to say, and we haven't seen too many incidents. I hope I don't speak too soon, but it's been relatively calm. It's interesting when you talk about turn 9 as well, because I've seen incidents there where you've got someone rapidly going through turn 9 and someone else coming into the pits, and that can cause some chaos as well. So in the race particularly, rather more than in practice.
And I think what's changed the style of corners now, certainly modern day circuits, is the runoff areas. I mean, I remember that when Copse back in the day, if you made a mistake there and ran wide, you were straight into the gravel. The gravel was right on the edge, whereas now Silverstone, Copse, you make a mistake at Copse, doesn't really matter, you just run out wide and you save it. And same with turn 9 here at Austria. That used to be a gravel trap, whereas now there's a small line of gravel on the exit of on the edge of the curb. But we saw Albon and a couple of other drivers yesterday lose the rear on there on the way in, and then opt to just run totally wide or out on the tarmac. So I think the nature of these corners and how tough they are also can depend on what the surface area is like on the exit.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a very good point. So Lando Norris is currently fastest. He is in the 104s, 104.888. Hamilton has gone second fastest now. Lewis in the Ferrari. Tsunoda actually quicker than Verstappen for a change at the moment. He's third, Verstappen fourth. We're listening to George George Russell at this stage, and we'll see how he gets on in the Mercedes. George and Kimi Antonelli, neither of them have set a time yet, but they are both about to. So they've left it quite late, understandably, because track temperatures are coming up a little bit more, and they're just waiting for these soft tyres to be at their best. And as we ride on board with George Russell, this is looking like a pretty smooth lap, but it's not up to pace with Norris.
It's not, and they're all looking, fairly, as you said, well behaved. No one having, even George wasn't running using all the exit curve on the exit of 6 and 7 there. So I wonder if they're all just kind of feeling the grip, hanging back. No one really at this stage in the session wanting to show their true hand, as Antonelli now through the final corner. He's in 20th place at the moment, but that's certainly about to change. Flies up into 11th place, but the track temperature is rising. So it was 32 when we did go green. It raised to 33. It's now at 38. So that sun has come out from behind the clouds, which is of course going to affect track conditions. But it just seems like no one really wants to show what they've got.
It does feel a bit like that. And it's interesting to see Hulkenberg as high up as he is. Nico Hulkenberg 5th at the moment in the Sauber, and he's had some good performances here. Kimi Antonelli did run a bit wide into the gravel a moment ago, but he was able to keep it going. He didn't have to drift right into it.
I wonder if who was that was on the apex? I wonder if he was slightly put off. Maybe we were about to see if it was Behrman.
That was the McLaren that held up Leclerc on me.
Yeah, and then it was a McLaren that held up Charles Leclerc. We're riding on board with Oscar now, who's just trying to turn into turn 1. I'm just having a look to see if the wind direction's changed slightly. There's a bit of a tailwind now going into turn 1, so potentially that's going to have a little bit of an effect on the way in there. But again, wind speeds aren't particularly high. No,
and that was a bit of a strange one, because Piastri actually went very wide. He wasn't right out to the barrier, but he was wider than I was expecting. Leclerc's done a personal best in the middle sector here, but whether this is going to improve him, but of course it will be a reasonable lap compared to where he is right now. He's not set a proper lap yet, so we'll see as he comes around this time where this puts him. Hamilton currently a bit further up the order in 2nd place, and Leclerc goes 8th fastest for now. So it's Lando Norris, Hamilton 2nd, Piastri 3rd, Tsunoda in 4th, Verstappen in 5th place, and Bortoleto and Hulkenberg in the 2 Saubers. They're now 6th and 7th, which is really quite interesting. The car does seem to be going well. We won't really know until we get into qualifying, but I have to say that Gabriel Bortoleto was impressive yesterday as well, and he's just gone a fraction faster than his teammate Nico Hulkenberg. It does seem as though some of the changes that Sauber have made, they've made a few wing changes and a revised floor for this weekend. So whether that's all coming together, we shall see, or whether it's the 2 of them pushing quite hard, and as you say, everyone else is taking it a bit easy at this stage. We'll find out.
Verstappen's back out, but he's still on that hard tyre, so he's a slightly different run to everybody else. So he is the only one not to have gone on a medium set or a soft set. He's doing all his running at the moment on that hard tyre. Back out there again. Let's have a little listen to Leclerc.
And we box Charles box and go out straight away.
I love it.
I love it, he says.
I don't know whether that was sarcasm from him or
yes, that was an
not. A
interesting
little change of tyres and straight back out.
Sounded like sarcasm to me. I don't know what about, but
well, interesting ones from Charles Leclerc, currently down in 9th place, but Hamilton's still up there in 2nd place at this stage. Verstappen having done another lap, and Leclerc is in. We're just having a quick look down in the pit lane there, so he's coming in. Let's have a look. Are they going to do much here? He's staying on the same tyres at the moment. They've jacked him up, and they are putting him back in the garage.
Yes, so he's not going back out straight away, unless that was quite a bit of a delayed radio message. So he's back into the garage for Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris just tried to go again on the soft tyre. He did set the fastest, improved actually in that middle sector, but it was an improvement of lap time, but he's now come into the pits.
We've got just over half an hour to go still in the 3rd practice session here for the Austrian Grand Prix, with qualifying coming up later on this afternoon, and qualifying will take place at 3 p.m. UK time. We will be following that, of course, all the way through and seeing who does take pole, because pole position here does have a big effect. Current track form, there have been 10 wins from pole position over the years. It is very important in many ways. Didn't work for Verstappen last year, even though he took pole, because there was the incident with Lando Norris late in the race, and it did allow George Russell to win the race from third on the grid. But we shall see how it all goes, and generally being up on that front row is pretty important here. Ollie Behrman's done a better job. He's in 10th place currently in the Haas, but Esteban Ocon down in 19th position. And there's a bit of a mix as well between the two Williams, which were a bit up and down yesterday. Carlos Sainz is currently 8th fastest, but Alex Albon down in 17th place. I still think we're going to... as I said that, he's just crossed the line and he's gone 9th. So, yeah, OK, both Williams are now in the top 10.
Mercedes Garage, what, John? Let's see their drivers out on track. Yes, that is Antonelli, still on a set of soft tyres. He's going to start a new lap. 30 minutes and 38 seconds remaining of the session. But it's actually the first time in about 4 Grand Prix that we've had a sprint race here. So we've been having sprint weekends here since 2021. So slightly different timetable for this Grand Prix in a while.
Absolutely.
We could have a conversation about French grammar if you like. Is that Grand Prix or Grand Prix?
You know what? That's going to be your strongest. Grammar is not my strongest. I can barely talk English, let alone French.
In French, you add the S to the grand for the plural, but not to prix, because you can't put an S on the end of a word that ends in X in French. That's how you used to just be Grand Prix. But in English, if you're saying it in English, what's the correct way to say it in English? I actually don't know.
Oh, I thought you were asking me that question. I don't know, Grand Prix.
I was interested, yeah.
Well, we're listening to Andrew and we're listening to Antonelli on board at the moment as he goes over the line. 6th fastest, Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes. Fun to hear that, Andrew.
Maybe Rosanna knows, because can't she speak French? So she'll know. Maybe she'll knows the two differences.
I definitely know how to say it in French. Grand Prix is the plural in French.
Bonjour.
But what's the plural of Grand Prix in English if you're saying it in English?
Do you know what the plural of Grand Prix is in English, Rosanna?
So what we're asking Rosanna is if it
I've been listening, Andrew. I've been listening. I hang off your every word.
Yeah, I think it's just 7 Grand Prix and you don't say Grand Prix. But
I think it is. I think it's just Grand Prix and people don't realise you've added an S on the end of Grand. Grande. So Grand.
Exactement.
G-R-A-N-D-S.
Parfait.
Exactement. Tout à fait. Tout à fait. Merci.
Excellent.
Makes her sound really intelligent, doesn't she, when she talks in French?
Yep, very good, very good. Well, Liam Lawson is about to come out on circuit once again. We shall see how the Racing Bulls are getting on this weekend. Liam Lawson down in 16th place at the moment, and Hajar in 18th place. But we did see them go out pretty late, and we are still waiting to see exactly what everyone's playing with. It does look as though everyone is just building up to qualifying later, and that this final practice is not necessarily going to tell us the huge story. Mind you, Lando Norris is fastest at the moment, as he was in free practice 2 yesterday. And what a crucial weekend this is for Lando Norris. After the disappointment of making a mistake, crashing into his teammate Oscar Piastri last time out in Canada, this is a crucial part of the Grand Prix weekends that we're getting into, particularly this weekend and next weekend, his home event at Silverstone. He's got to make it work. Lando Norris at the moment, Andrew, is making it work, but we won't know until we get into full qualifying later.
Yeah, I think championship wise he's getting into the danger zone at the moment. He's 22 points behind his teammate. It's nearly a clear win, and I agree with you. Okay, there's still 14 Grand Prix to go, but he can't afford to let that gap get much bigger, because it just gets harder and harder to pull it back. I know that sounds like stating the obvious, but what happens in that situation is the pressure builds. Every single mistake you make becomes magnified, and at the moment he's having a very good weekend. He's looking very comfortable, very fast. You get these weekends where one driver in a team looks like the faster driver. Red Bull, you always know which one it's going to be, but McLaren, it's been swapping backwards and forwards between Norris and Piastri all year. But the key thing is that just because Norris looks like the faster McLaren driver through practice, he doesn't always deliver when it matters in Q3. And because he's been struggling with the, as we've discussed many times already this year, the predictability of the car, the feeling he's getting from the front axle. And it's only when he pushes right out to the limit, Alice, isn't it, that he struggles, that he's finding that issue. They have made some changes to the car in Canada, and which they've carried forward to here for his car particularly, to help him on that. But in Canada, even though he was getting the feeling better, he still made the mistakes in Q3, still qualified out of position, and that's how he was behind Piastri and that's how he ended up running into the back of him when he made that mistake. So what's going to happen this afternoon? Is he going to nail it? Is he going to, use this is a racetrack where he's done so well in the past, he fits well with it. But does that necessarily mean he's going to be able to deliver in final qualifying? It's really going to be, that's what's going to define his weekend again.
Absolutely, it's going to be fascinating to see. Rosanna, what have you got for us?
Je suis juste à côté du garage de Mercedes. Je viens de voir les deux pilotes. Et maintenant, les mécaniques sont en train de mettre les pneus sur la voiture. Ouais, voilà. Et en fait, le sol est pris maintenant. Yeah, you okay with that? Is that all right?
I can translate that for you if you want.
Go on then.
Yeah.
Go on.
She's outside the Mercedes garage and the mechanics are just fitting new tyres to the car.
And the sun is shining!
Excellent, thank you.
If someone had just turned on during this, they'd be like, what radio station have I just put on?
Absolutely right. Well, we've got 25 minutes, just over 25 minutes to go in third practice here in Austria. Lando Norris setting the pace earlier on. It's now getting a bit busier. It's been remarkably quiet out there. A lot of teams have not gone out because they've sort of been waiting for the track to warm up, to build up some track temperature that will be more relevant to qualifying later on. Lewis Hamilton, though, has done a decent job, second fastest at the moment. And of course, this is a track he's won at, like nearly every track. But he's only had 2 wins here, which for Lewis is actually not as many as he's had at so many others. He's had 3 pole positions, some 6 podium finishes here over the years. Yesterday, he had some problems. They had a gearbox problem with the car, which they had to change the gearbox between free practice 1 and free practice 2. And it wasn't feeling 100% right, but he's done that good lap so far. And we've got a few more cars heading out there. And he is on an out lap on the soft. So, Alice, this could be another one to watch here.
Yep. Slowly building up. He kept out of the way of one of the Williams cars there. I was just actually having a look, saying, what's Verstappen's on? And he's still 19 laps on the hard tyre. He's still going round on that hard tyre as Hamilton asks to turn his Ferrari into turn 1. Rear of the car kicks out and says no, and that is his lap abandoned. So no doubt we'll hear from Hamilton on the radio complaining about grip, but both of the Ferraris have not looked comfortable on entry. We saw the same from Charles Leclerc as he went into turn 3. So Hamilton has totally backed off. It's fairly quiet where he is on track at the moment. Piastri just set a personal best in the middle sector as we're going to ride on board with Lewis Hamilton. He's going to hit the brakes, turn into turn 1, and the rear of the car is just going to come round. And lucky for him, there's no gravel on the exit there, so he can run all the way off, gather it back up, and try. I'm guessing he'll then try again.
Yeah, presumably that's why he's backed off again, to protect these tyres until he goes on to another lap. In the meantime, we've got Oscar Piastri just going over the line as well. Currently he is 4th fastest, half a second away from his teammate Lando Norris, but he's not putting together a quick lap now either. He's just backed off, having gone through turn 1. So Norris has done 10 laps, 11 laps by Hamilton. That seems to be the total, except for Verstappen, as you say, who's done the most laps of anybody. He's now done 20 laps. Interestingly, that they've decided to do a slightly different strategy this weekend in terms of tyre use as well. We're riding on board with Oscar Piastri as he came through the last 2 corners. Oh, 9, he went into the gravel. The 2 outside tyres just touching the gravel. My goodness, he did well to hold that.
He did very well to hold that. Could be quickly spitting you across, going right into the barriers there, but I feel sorry for whoever's next to come around that corner because the track's covered in gravel. Charles Leclerc's just done a personal best in the middle sector in the Ferrari. We see him just come over the crest now into turn 9, swoops down. That gravel is still a little bit there, left over from Oscar Piastri. goes through, runs out at turn 10. Let's see if this is any further improvement. He is. It pops up into second place, so he's just ahead of Lewis Hamilton, but still 2.5 tenths shy of Lando Norris, who's just on an out lap now.
Okay, yeah, interesting to see. That is definitely an improvement, though. Ferrari running second and third. Listen to Piastri.
You just need to check the floor, obviously. Yeah, will do.
Yeah, and he's just referring to the fact that he'd gone into the gravel, ran wide, and he now wants the floor to be checked. Mind you, he did a great job of saving it. I've seen some huge accidents in that section of the track that you were talking about, 9 and 10 earlier on, Alice, and we have seen some big crashes up on the outside of that. But he saved it very, very well, and hopefully, I don't think the floor will be too much damage.
Yeah, it wasn't too much of a dip into the gravel. Just the rear wheel kicked it out. George Russell asking a bit too much of his Mercedes on the way into turn 3, but he set fastest of anybody in the first sector. Had that kick of oversteer where Leclerc did into 3, down on the brakes into 4. He'll then come up into 6, and sector 2 ends just on the entry into turn 7. So we'll have a little wait to see how he's going to stack up in that middle sector. It's not fastest overall, but it's still a fairly decent sector, and he's currently up by 1/10 on Lando Norris.
Yeah, he is. So let's just we'll keep an eye on him into the final 2 corners. And he keeps it nicely under control through the first part, perfect through the second part, running it as wide as you can go without going too far, and he goes second fastest, 0.13 of a second behind Lando Norris. For Mercedes, this has been a very successful track. Of course, he won last year after the incident between Lando and Max Verstappen. Mercedes have won 7 of the events of this track layout since it was reintroduced as the A1 ring in 1997 and then became the Red Bull ring in 2014, and the Mercedes team have had some great results. In fact, they had the last 1-2 here, I think, in 2018 when Bottas and Hamilton were 1-2. It's been a little while since we've had a 1-2 in the same team. Possible this weekend, of course, between Norris and Piastri. But right now, Lando Norris is still the fastest from that time he set quite early on in this session. Russell is now second, and Antonelli has now moved up to third. So the Mercedes pace is looking good. Fernando Alonso we're keeping an eye on here, and the Aston Martin has surprised us a little bit. So let's watch this and see whether Fernando's going to be rapid again.
Let's have a look. Comes onto the brakes, and he is. He's up on Lando Norris in the first sector, but the McLarens don't seem particularly strong in the first sector, and the first sector is literally turn 1. Across the start-finish line into turn 1, and then just before the braking zone into 3. So quite a short sector, only 22 seconds, and he has a bit of a squirm on the exit there on turn 4, and we'll wait then to see him come out of sector 2.
So McLaren are making all their time in turns 6 and 7, which is where Alonso is now. And I was speaking to Andy Cowell, the Aston Martin team principal in Canada, about their upturn in form, and he was saying that they're a bit worried about the next few races because long corners are where they're still struggling. They've got an aerodynamic inconsistency in those, whereas of course Canada, where they were quite strong, is all short corners. So there are some corners on this track which are going to expose those weaknesses in the Aston Martin. So we'll see how Alonso gets on as he crosses the line. He goes 6th fastest, which is not too bad for him.
Oh, that's quite good, isn't it, for Aston Martin? They do seem to have made a little bit of an improvement here. We'll see that, of course, more later on. But for Fernando Alonso to have gone 6th fastest, Lance Stroll's been showing good pace. He hasn't been out in the soft tyre yet, so his position has moved down to 17th. But we are waiting for him to come back out on the soft tyre, and we'll see whether Lance Stroll is going to be looking as rapid as he has this weekend. We're looking at a replay of Lando Norris going up into turn 1, late braking, of course, and actually he did back off and was frustrated. Yeah.
They're struggling. A lot of them are struggling into turn 1. It's even more of a tailwind now. Wind's picked up slightly, so again that can be having a bit more of an effect for them. We just saw the McLaren crew, Oscar Piastri's crew, just gluing a bit of the floor back together, and it looks like something similar is happening to Max Verstappen's car as well, as they're underneath the car. He's obviously up on the jacks, and he's the only one that's not ventured off the hard tyre yet, so he's clocked up 20 laps on that hard tyre. He's only 6 tenths off, nearly 7 tenths off, so I expect if he does bolt on a set of the soft tyres, that really is going to propel him up the order.
Lance Stroll's just coming out onto circuit now as well, and he's actually on the soft tyre. He was on the medium tyre earlier, but he's now on the soft tyre. So let's see whether he's going to be able to compete. He's got his outlap to do, of course, first of all, before he picks up the pace. And we're listening to Nico Hülkenberg now in the Sauber, which has been showing reasonable pace. He's down in 12th position now. His teammate Bortoletto 1 position higher in 11th. And Hülkenberg is now beginning to put together a lap, but we shall see whether this improves at all into turn 4. Oh, bit of oversteer on exit there.
Yeah, he asked for the throttle and the car said no. All over the road looking for grip, and then he's just turned in to 6th, slightly missed the apex, and that's where then it starts to drop down, and he was just asking for that front end to bite, and it didn't want to. Norris, though, has just gone fastest of anybody in that first sector, so he's back out having a push. Antonelli popped himself up into P3 just behind his teammate, but Hülkenberg, a slight improvement, moves up ahead of Verstappen, goes into the top 10, but it didn't look great there. And actually this lap from Lando Norris, well, he's 4/10 up on his own time at the moment.
Well, this is looking very rapid, as you say. This is going to take another step. Remember, yesterday, the fastest lap Norris did was a 1 minute 4.5. I think this is going to be quicker than that. Let's just see as he goes over the line. Yeah, 1 minute 4.3. So that's certainly the fastest of the weekend. And Rosanna, the McLaren is looking strong.
It really is, but a little setback for Oscar Piastri, who's just about to be let out of the McLaren garage. The mechanics have been working on the left-hand side of his car. The floor had picked up some damage, so they were taping it up, and then they use Alice will give me the correct word, but sort of a heat gun to cure it. So the mechanics are happy with it. They've just put away their little tray of goodies to fix things on the car, and he's ready to go out. Mechanics running back into the... huge bit of dust picked up at the end of the lap there, turn 10. Everybody looking up from the pit lane to that. What happened there, Ben?
Isaac Hadjar's just been off. We'll have a look at it in a moment. He's going quite slowly. The car's okay, but clearly he's just been off, Alice.
I would have thought he's come out of turn 9, down into turn 10, turned in, and the rear of the car has said no. So we're just waiting to see. Here's the replay now. So he goes through turn 9, turns into turn 10, and actually just understeers onto the gravel, does a full 360 and pointing the right direction. Nicely done.
Yeah, but it was a bit lucky. You never quite know how it's going to go when you do a full spin like that through the gravel. But as you said, the way they've rejigged this track is quite clever.
Well, sorry.
Yeah,
he finds it quite funny.
That was his report. The fact that you go through the gravel but get back onto surface quite quickly does give you a bit more chance of staying off the barrier.
It does, but I've seen, and I'm pretty sure you would have seen as well, some hefty accidents there, just where it just spits you right, and then before you know it, you're into the pit wall. Bortoletto had a really strong day yesterday, is out on that soft tyre. He's done personal best in the second sector, and he's going to, wow, he jumps up 8.5 tenths off Lando Norris's impressive time and goes up into the top 6, splitting the two Ferraris.
Yeah, that's impressive. The 20-year-old Brazilian in his first full year of Formula One, and we'll see, can he continue this sort of pace when we get actually into qualifying later. Yuki Tsunoda, teammate of course to Max Verstappen, who has struggled to be anywhere near Max in qualifying in recent times, to be honest. He did a good lap earlier on. We'll see now what he can put together. Currently down in 12th, but now starting to put together a more potential lap here, and we shall see how this goes. So decent first sector, but let's just watch as it continues.
Yeah, so he's just under a tenth off in the first sector of Lando Norris, who's fastest in all 3 of the sectors. We'll wait for him to come up through sector 2. Let's have a little look. But yeah, he's really lacking in that middle sector compared to Lando. Max is still in the garage, more work being done on his car, but already he's over half a second down on Lando Norris's time, which sounds a lot, but actually Lando's 7 tenths clear of George Russell in second place. But this order certainly will start to change. We're heading into the final moments of the session with 12 minutes 47-46 seconds remaining of the session. Tsunoda pops up into the top 5.
Yeah, so he's 5th fastest for the moment, but as you say, a full 8 tenths away from Lando Norris. And I think, 8 tenths could be enough for the even less than that actually for the top 10 when we get into qualifying later. So 8 tenths, it may not sound like much, and he is in 5th, but I think that actually when we get into qualifying, that could mean make you a lot lower down the order. So Lando Norris, George Russell, Kimi Antonelli, top 3 at the moment. Lance Stroll up there again in 4th place. I mean, he's been consistently up there this weekend so far, Lance Stroll. This is impressive, faster than his teammate Alonso, who's down in 11th place. Doesn't really look as though he might be able to out-qualify Alonso this weekend for the first time in a very long time, but let's wait and see, because when you're under the pressure of qualifying and it all matters, then it's often the very top drivers, champions like Alonso, who can show what they can do.
It certainly is that. Isaac Hadjar was on a brand new set of soft tyres, so he's kind of flat spotted those. Just looking out, we've got a new leader in sector 1 at least. That is Oscar Piastri, who's just set the fastest of anyone in the first sector, and then he's near enough matched the best of Lando Norris in the middle sector. Tsunoda's on the radio complaining that he's got too much understeer, as Oscar's going to go through turn 9. Looks quite nice through there, right up to the edge of the gravel. Then a kick of oversteer on the exit of turn 10, but let's see if it does hinder him a little bit. Only pops up into P2, but he was of course gunning for top spot. He's just over a 10th off his teammate.
Absolutely. So a fraction faster in sector 1, but missing out in sector 2 and sector 3. I gather there's been an incident in the pit lane. Rosanna, what's going on?
Well, no contact, but Charles Leclerc was let out of his garage right into the path of Lando Norris, who had to totally back off. And just watching Lando Norris in the car, you can imagine he's going to be straight on the phone to his team to say, hey, that wasn't fair. Lewis Hamilton's followed them out. Max Verstappen's now out as well. Everybody heading out on track for the last sort of 10 minutes or so of this session. Yeah,
it's getting busy now. It was very quiet earlier on, but as you say, with just over 10 minutes to go, it's getting very busy. Max Verstappen heading down on a brand new set of softs by the look of it, and so we are going to see some much more relevant times.
Everyone's going to be looking at this timing screen now, including us, glued to it. This is what we've been waiting for, because Max's time really on the hard tyre, I thought, was pretty decent. Certainly for the time that he did it, and when Norris and co were out on the soft tyre. So he's crawling up the hill. It's quite a steep hill up the pit lane. He'll be getting track space, so they'll be on the radio to him saying, okay, take it a little bit slower on pit exit, because you've got whoever coming up behind. So track position is going to be so important, not just for these dying stages to get a lap in at the end of this practice session, but also for qualifying. It's going to get pretty congested there. Everyone wants their own bit of track space. Some people, if they're just lacking a little bit of pace, might want to hitch a toe off somebody to try and drag them out of Q1 and into Q2, or then into Q3.
We're on board at the moment with British driver Ollie Bearman, the 20-year-old, originally from Chelmsford in the UK. He is on a reasonable lap, but it's not anywhere up near the very top. So we shall see how this goes. The Haas team, of course, as we've seen, not always fastest in qualifying, but they have had some good race pace in recent times, and we'll see whether there's going to be another chance for them to score some points. He goes 13th fastest. He is 1.042 seconds off the fastest. That's how close it's all going to be. His dad keeping an eye on things right now as well. His best qualifying this year has been 10th on the grid. His best finish 8th, and he has scored points on 3 occasions so far this year. Ollie Bearman currently 13th. His teammate Esteban Ocon down in 15th place at this stage. More others now, though. Max Verstappen is one we are riding on board with as he goes on to a quick lap.
Yeah, he's actually got a bit of traffic in front of him, though. Who's that? Dives out the way last minute. Gave him a little bit of a tow on the way up to turn 1. Norris again on fire. He set the fastest lap of anyone sector of anyone in the first sector, as we'll await for Max Verstappen, who pretty much does an identical time to Lando in that first sector. A little bit of traction loss on the exit of turn 3 for him there. We've got visor cam from him. Dives down into the downhill braking of turn 4, hooks it up really nicely on that curb, has to wait probably a little bit longer than he would have liked to apply the throttle. He had a touch of understeer on the exit there, and then into the demanding turn 6. You'd have to wait, not be too greedy with the throttle there, and he's at the moment lost a little bit of time. He's lost a 10th there to Lando Norris.
He has. Lando Norris has been, as you say, been putting together a good lap, but it's no change. He's on a 104.3. Max Verstappen, let's just see. This is going to put him up near the top, but not quite. Yeah, he goes third. So he's 0.2 of a second off Lando Norris. It is a 1-2 for McLaren and third for Verstappen at the moment, which is no huge surprise. This is exactly the order we actually had in FP2 yesterday. Norris, Piastri, Verstappen. That's where it is right now. Whether that's how it's going to be in qualifying, of course, we don't know yet, but let's just have a little onboard view from Lando Norris. Let's find out what happened to him in turn 3.
Too late on the brakes.
Okay.
He was way too late on the brakes, missed the apex, tried to make it, and then he hooked a wheel on the edge of the sausage curb, and he kind of skateboard across the top of that. You can see sparks flying from the underneath of the car, so he's going to have to probably come in and have a see if that floor can have a bit of a check over. But that was looking all right in that first sector, but he's had to abandon this. Oscar did try to go again as well, and was a couple of tenths shy of what he produced. So no one really making gains forward. The only driver that's making improvements out on track currently is Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on that, but it is a fascinating circuit, this one, because it's such a challenge, but it's so easy to just get it slightly wrong at one corner, and that throws away the whole lap. Of course, it's not a hugely long lap, so you've got time to back it all off, slow down, come back, and go for it again. But you are wearing tyres out. It is important that you get the best out of the tyres, and it's so difficult to get it absolutely perfect all the way around. I noticed when we were watching Verstappen, he wasn't taking any huge risks. He was driving hard, going for it, but not the sort of risks that we sometimes see him take when we get into qualifying.
Yeah, it's there's no risk. You don't want to risk too much in this practice session. The only time you would want to really risk it in free practice 3 if it was looking like there was going to be torrential rain incoming, and they cancelled qualifying, had no time to run it on the Sunday, and they'd have to take the result from free practice 3. But we don't have any risk of that here at Austria at the moment, so there's no worth taking too much of a risk.
Absolutely, we shall see. Just having a look at several cars coming up. By the way, Franco Colapinto's done a slightly better lap on a set of softs, but not much. He's not really improved. He's gone from last to 19th, Franco Colapinto in the Alpine. But his teammate actually is not much further. Pierre Gasly's down in 17th place. The gap between them, less than 0.2 of a second. And that just seems to show the Alpine is not working so well here. Ollie Behrman is ahead of both of the Alpines at this stage. Meanwhile, we're going to keep an eye on George Russell. He's just gone across the line on another flying lap. Currently 6th fastest, the driver who won here last year. Let's see how the man who also won the last race in this 2025 season in Canada, let's see how he gets on as he comes to the first sector.
Through the first sector, cuts the timing beam, and it's not a great first sector. It's not even a personal best for George Russell, and you can hear him apply the throttle, and the rear tyres desperately searching for grip as he passes a couple of slow cars on his right hand side down into turn 4. And it's not, again, he's looking fairly comfortable and neat and tidy, but not a personal best again, so clearly not finding any additional pace to what he already showed on the board.
Yeah, no, he's nearly half a second off Norris's tech time at the second sector. We're riding on board with George as he comes into the last 2 corners. This light break into the first part, turn 9. Flat out again, brake again, flat out again on exit. Try not to run too wide. Perfect exit. Didn't run onto the gravels. There is a yellow flag elsewhere around the track. He is 6th fastest, so yeah, didn't really improve too much. Kimi Antonelli is on a personal improving lap, though. He may well go ahead of Russell. He is currently in 7th place.
He is, and I think he will if he continues. We've still got the yellow flags just come in, and I think it was up for turn 1. Oh, Antonelli drops a wheel in the gravel, just about saves it. Max Verstappen, who's just starting another lap behind him, gets a face full of gravel.
That cost him, though, too, because he was going to improve on Russell, but he lost in that last sector with that slide.
Exactly that. Toto watches on, and no real expression from him. But another check of the floor will be incoming in the Mercedes garage, and we still don't know what the yellow flag was for, but Verstappen is on another push lap. It's not a personal best from him, though, in the first sector.
I'm a bit intrigued by all of this because some of them are pushing hard, some of them not so much. I think when we get into qualifying, there are going to be more errors because it's so easy. And this time, Antonelli just put the wheels into the gravel briefly, corrected the car very effectively. We're looking at an onboard just to sort of see the steering control. Look, talk us through this, Alice.
So he goes in, a couple of down change, you can hear him screaming in the revs, and he actually just has some understeer, so just carries a bit too much speed in, and that's been the change. So interesting, since the track has warmed up, we've as Gasly,
I almost jumped it with that Red Bull. I don't know who the it was. Knowing these guys.
that was Max Verstappen, who actually
he couldn't really do much more.
No, Max was out the way. Wasn't going to be a shunt there. No, nothing to worry about. But yes, it seems to be as the track has increased in temperature, and it was Yusuke Tsunoda that had that spin, just understeered wide, got on top of that sausage curb, and that spun him round. So we've gone from having oversteer in the cooler temperatures to track warming up. It's now over 40 degrees. So it's nearly 10 degrees warmer than it was at the start of the session, to quite a bit of understeer appearing on several of the cars. Charles Leclerc now keeps it nice and tidy through 9 out of 10. This is not, well, this is his outlap, so he's just building up now. And let's see if he can make any steps forward. 2.5 tenths off Lando Norris at the moment, and that's nicely through turn 1.
Yeah, but at the moment Ferrari are looking stronger than Mercedes, which is interesting. I don't think there's a huge difference between them. As you say, we'll keep an eye on Charles. He's 0.1 of a second slower than Lando Norris at the first sector, and he's pretty tidy. Oh no, he's backed off actually. I didn't think that looked too bad, but he obviously did get it a bit wrong into turn 3.
He did. He tried to turn in and it didn't want to go in. Wasn't a snap like it was last time. It just sort of like he was going to sail wide. But interesting that you note the times from Mercedes. Of course, we don't know what fuel loads anybody is running. Lewis Hamilton, though, he's just set the best personal first sector.
Max Verstappen, we're looking on. Oh, Max had a spin out of the last corner. We didn't see that until now. Beautifully controlled. Again, he just flicks it into the right gear and carries on as if nothing had happened. But yeah, no damage done. But let's listen to him.
Yeah, no, 360.
So he used way too much apex curb. He hit the yellow sausage, which bounced the car and spun him around. So a rare mistake from Max Verstappen. Alonso is really strong in that first sector, but he's struggling in the middle one. Here's Charles Leclerc. And again, it actually was a little bit nervous on the way in and then kicked him into some understeer. So again, it's a similar trait that we've seen from the Ferraris.
Checker flag is out, and that means that the session is pretty much over. I don't think anyone's on a quicker lap right now. Lando Norris has once again set the pace, as he did in free practice 2 yesterday afternoon, and it is a McLaren 1-2 with a gap of 0.1 of a second effectively between Norris and Piastri. Verstappen third fastest. He had a little moment just then as we were talking about a spin out of the last corner. Car not damaged, even if he flat spotted the tyres. Ferrari looking in reasonable shape because Leclerc in 4th place, only a fraction behind Verstappen, and teammate Lewis Hamilton in 5th place. George Russell in 6th for Mercedes, 7th for his teammate Kimi Antonelli, so Mercedes 6th and 7th. And then in 8th place, Lance Stroll showing good pace around this track with the Aston Martin, 7 tenths off Norris, but in that top 10. Ahead of Yuki Tsunoda in 9th place, and Gabriel Bortoleto in the Sauber. Always impressive so far this weekend, 10th fastest. We're just hearing and seeing Franco Colapinto having a spin at turn 3 over the curb, but no actual damage done and no other cars around to make contact with him. Liam Lawson was just outside the top 10 in 11th place. Fernando Alonso was 12th. Nico Hulkenberg 13th, ahead of Alex Albon, and the two Williams were a bit far down again. They were down in 14th and 15th. Alex followed by Carlos Sainz, his teammate. Ollie Behrman was 16th in the Haas. Pierre Gasly down in 17th, and the Alpine's not looking very quick. Ocon was 18th in the other Haas, then Colapinto, who's had that spin just now, 19th, and slowest of all, surprisingly, and this won't help him if we get like this in qualifying, Isaac Hadjar, because Isaac so far hasn't failed to get out of Q1 in Formula 1, and we shall see what happens later on in qualifying. So Alice, give us a quick thought on how it's gone in this final practice session.
McLaren's looking very strong, but one thing to note on Hadjar, he didn't run get a time on that soft tyre because of course he spun at the final corner. But I think we've got an exciting battle on our hand between Norris, Piastri and Verstappen, those three looking particularly strong.
Yeah, it does look as though, as ever bit this year, the two McLarens and the Red Bull of Verstappen are going to be the ones really fighting for it. But Ferrari do look a little bit ahead of Mercedes. It may well be a real mix between them when it comes to the actual qualifying later on. They're doing some practice starts right now, and of course that is always important to get a feel for the grip level off the line here. This is not the grippiest circuit in the world, that's for sure. So they've got to understand just how much power they need. Interestingly, I think Isaac Hadjar just ran through the exit of turn 1 there as he'd done a practice start out of the corner. But thankfully no damage done to cars. We saw quite a few spins, quite a few people running into the gravel traps, but thankfully no accidents have actually been made, and it means the teams have got the work to do now to do the sort of final development and get them ready for qualifying.
They have, last time, opportunity for them to make any changes going into qualifying, and it's always one of those, if you're just looking for that little tenth, 2 tenths, which is a lot round this circuit, do you risk to try and make those changes when track conditions will be different later on today? We've got a Formula 2 race that's going to be taking place before qualifying, so a lot of Pirelli rubber is going to be going down. So, yeah, final changes. George gets called on to the weighbridge, which you have to do, otherwise a penalty can be incoming if you miss that. But it's going to be exciting for qualifying, that's for sure.
It certainly is. And for Max Verstappen, who was third fastest here today, he will be looking for his 6th ever pole position at this Red Bull Ring, and it would be consecutive. He's been on pole here since 2021. Is he going to be able to do it? Well, I think it could be a tough battle with McLaren. It is a long time since McLaren have had a pole, although they've had plenty in the past, but you've actually got to go back to the year 2000. So we are 25 years away since McLaren had a pole position, and yet Lando Norris was fastest in practice both today and yesterday afternoon, and his teammate Oscar Piastri was 2nd fastest. Verstappen in 3rd, Leclerc ahead of Hamilton, then George Russell, who was the winner here last year, well, he was 6th fastest today. Kimi Antonelli, his teammate, 7th, Lance Stroll in 8th, Yuki Tsunoda was 9th, and Gabriel Bortoleto in 10th place, followed by Lawson, Alonso, Hulkenberg, the 2 Williams of Albon and Sainz, Behrman is 16th, Gasly, Ocon, Colapinto and Hadjar. We'll be back for qualifying at 3 p.m. UK time. This is an IMG production for Radio 5 Live.